So today we're going to do symbol animation. Any of the animations we did with text you can also do with symbols. So for this title scene, what I want to do is actually animate past the audio so that the text clears out and then you can just focus in on the actual animation. So I'm going to change this to fit window library out of the way. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come out to all of the other layers that I've already done animations. I'm going to hold down Shift to select them all, and I'm going to hit F5 so that they all exist all the way out to the same place. However, the audio stops out here at 55. So for the frog actually, if you notice, the frog isn't there, and neither is the other hand of the clock. That's because, if you notice, we have keyframes only in frame 1, but not way out in 55. So I'm going to do the same. I'm actually going to insert a keyframe because it's going to have a change. But prior to that, nothing's going to actually happen. So insert F8, insert a keyframe, so that they both now exist. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the minute hand start to move, and the frog actually is going to start to move in. So actually, prior to this, I'm going to remove these frames. So I'm going to highlight in the frog, and I'm going to unlock the layer because it's not going to let me do anything until I unlock the layer. The other layers, and I am going to remove my frames. Actually, I have 2 keyframes, so I'll remove the other keyframe, and I'm going to take this frame and drag it out to 55. So actually, the frog is not going to even exist until when it gets here. So what I'm going to have the frog do is basically start to creep in. So it's already a symbol because when you upload them they automatically become symbols. So I'm going to grab onto this and I'm going to drag it off scene, and I'm going to right click and create a motion tween, and then I'm going to come here at the end, insert a keyframe, and it's just going to be a position keyframe because it's just going to move, and I will drag it into the corner so that now, and I'm going to scrub the scene to see what happens, that this will come in, and actually I'm going to remove the frames from the other because I actually want all of the text to be gone, so I'm going to remove those frames, and the other 3 layers and highlight, and it's easier to highlight from right to left in this case. I'm going to remove those frames so that the text doesn't really block what's happening with the new animations. Now for the minute hand. So I'm going to lock everything else up again. So, going to click on the minute hand, and this is where I was telling you about the registration mark before. That's this little circle right here. It is essentially the pivot point for your symbol. Now I need to take this pivot point and actually move it to where it would rotate, which is down to where it would pivot from the center point where it's attached. So, and then I'm going to again create a motion tween and come out here and insert my keyframe, position key rotation this time. So when I click on it, so in the beginning, I'm actually going to have it be down a bit so that when it ends, it's going to be in here. So again, if I scrub the scene, you can see that it looks like the frog is coming in and so forth. Alright, so now my scene is essentially done. So there's a couple other things that you should always do. So we're going to do a save, always a good idea. And you can also test the scene in the actual, see what it's actually going to look like, not in the Flash software. So dragging it back and forth across the top will show you most of what's going on when you scrub the scene. However, if you go up into Control and you can test movie or test scene. Well, I'm not going to test movie. I do have all my other scenes in there, so it's going to be a little strange to flick through 9 empty scenes. So I'm going to go to test scene. It's going to export. And it's going to loop because we don't have a stop command on it, but that's okay with that. Now, I'm ready to move on to scene 2. So just one of the things that I want to show you is you need to make sure that you have enough for the audio, but if you do have something that's going to extend past the audio, that's completely fine. Now I'm going to move to scene 2. I'm going to go over here to my clapper and move to my scene 2. So again, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put in my audio. Now my audio for this is long. It's 14 seconds. So it's going to need a good amount of keyframes going out, and I am going to just insert a frame and lock all the other layers up. Go to my library, find the correct sound, which is scene 2, and I'm going to drag it to my stage. Now, I'm going to check to make sure that I've put in enough frames. So, I've done exactly what I needed to do. I put the frames out slightly farther than what the audio is, and this is going to be a really simple scene. It's a text scene, but I'm not making text for it. I actually have an image that I'm going to be using. So I've imported it. Doesn't actually look like it made itself into a symbol. I need to make sure I'm in the right layer. I actually don't have any background. It's not going to have any additional layers, so I'm actually going to delete those out. It doesn't have a character. It does have text, but it's actually more like a prop. And I could delete the background because I'm not going to, don't really need it, but I'm going to leave it for now. So I'm going to take my text, make sure I'm in the right layer, lock the audio layer, and I'm going to bring this over onto my stage. And just to kind of make sure that the background is filled in as the color I want it to, I showed you before how to color in the stage. I'm going to make this, I'm going to make the stage the same color as the background. Now, you can't just do merely a flood fill like you would with anything. Flash wants borders, so you're going to need to use your rectangle tool and essentially fill in the background if this is something you were going to want to do. It's going to have a stroke and it's going to have a fill. So the fill color, I'm going to color pick from here and make it the exact same color. However, I don't want a stroke color, so I am going to click on no stroke color. And then, making sure I'm in the background layer, and unlock it, I'm going to take the rectangle and fill in my stage was the same color as the text. Now you can notice it's cut off. I have a little piece over here. They do have a lasso tool, and here's my magic wand. I could click on that little piece and I could delete it, or I could go to my eraser and I could erase that little piece off. However, you notice that it's not letting me. That is because it needs to be broken apart. I'm going to go to Modify, not clicked on it, Modify, break apart, and you're going to see that it gets little dots on it. Sometimes you have to break it apart twice. Right now it looks like I'm good to go. So now I'm going to go to my lasso, I'm going to go to my magic wand, I'm going to click on that little piece of white and see if it lets me to delete it. Lasso, magic wand, click on that little white section, there I got my dots, hit delete, and it gives me a little bit of extra edge, so I'm just going to come in here with the eraser. Now it looks like when I erase this, it's leaving a white line. It isn't. It's just showing you where the eraser is. And I would need to come down all the way to the rest of my symbol. I'm going to zoom out a bit. Or I could have made it bigger. Alright. What my intentions are for this one. Now I'm going to go out and make sure that my background exists all the way the same. And since there's not going to be any changes, I'm just going to do an F5 and put in a regular frame. But I'm going to have this basically kind of scroll up. So I need to make it a symbol. It's not yet a symbol yet. So Modify, convert to symbol. This is, I'm just going to call this Scene 1. And it's going to be a graphic. Don't really need to worry about the registration. I'm going to take this, drag it down all the way to the bottom, and I'm going to have this scroll all the way up and out of the scene. So I need to right click, create my motion tween. I'm going to come to the end, add my keyframe, going to choose position because that's what I'm changing, and I'm just going to drag it so that it essentially scrolls out of the scene the whole time. So scrub the scene. You can see it just kind of scrolls through all the way through. Again, Control, test scene. Alright, and we're good to go. So I'm just going to save this. Always good to intermittently save as you are working.